Hello, everyone. Welcome to the continuation of the Rosalind Franklin Society annual meeting. This session is entitled Unique Opportunities in Biotech, and I'm delighted to be the moderator. I'm Kevin Davies with Genetic Engineering News, the CRISPR Journal, and Gen Biotechnology. A little later in this session, we'll be speaking with Squire Servance, who is the founder and managing partner of Syridex Bio. That's coming up a little bit later. But we're going to start with a conversation with two of the co-founders of Smart Immune, a really exciting biotech company that was founded in Paris in 2017. And Paris, I believe, is where we find today Karine, Rossignol, and Mariana Cavazzana, who are longtime friends. They originally met at the Imagine Institute in Paris, and we'll hear all about that story and the genesis of this company and its goals and the challenges and successes that Karine and Mariana have faced over the course of their career trajectory. Karine is doesn't have a typical science background. She's got a lot of experience leading large-scale operations in many blue-chip companies and research institutes. She was formerly the CEO of the French Foundation for Hearing, and before that, the Co-Secretary General of the Imagine Institute of Genetic Diseases, which she helped launch. But her business experience includes years at L'Oreal and Chanel. I vaguely know what those companies do, where she deepened her international marketing experience before earning a master's degree in genetics, and we'll hear about that's an interesting career path. She was awarded the French National Order of Merit, the Chevalier title, back in 2014. For the scientists in the audience, Mariana Cavazzana should be a familiar name. She's a pediatrician and a hematologist and a true pioneer in cell and gene therapy, a recipient of many prestigious prizes, including the French National Medicine Academy's Grand Prix. At the Necker Children's Hospital, she leads the Biotherapy Clinical Investigation Center and the Gene Therapy Clinical Department. She's pioneered at least 9 first-in-human gene therapies for diseases like SCID, sickle cell disease, and beta thalassemia. She co-founded Smart Immune in 2017 with Karine and Isabelle Andre to develop a T-cell progenitor therapy platform to rearm the immune system against cancers and infections. And I think I've done enough talking about the bios. It'd be far more interesting, I'm sure, to hear from our two guests themselves. So, Karine and Mariana, hello, welcome, bonjour.
Bonjour. Thank you very much for inviting us.
So I provided a very brief, high-level introduction, but perhaps you could tell us a little bit in your own words about your path to Smart Immune and the genesis of this exciting company. So, Karine, let me start with you, please.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I would say, and I strongly believe it, it's all about science and people. I often say it, but on top of my 50 years old experience now, I can say that it's definitely what has driven the creation of this company. I am not a real scientist. I've got a PhD in pharmacy, but I don't consider myself as a scientist. I understand enough of science to be excited by innovation, but what it can bring to patients and how, if you put the right kind of expertise and experience together, you can bring innovation to patients. And that's certainly what keeps me awake at night. I've been a patient myself twice. I have been through autoimmune diseases at the Necker Hospital campus when I was a teenager. And later on, I was a cancer patient with a breast cancer at 42 years old. So I know what it is to go through chemo. I know what it is to see your body totally changed by the treatment. So when I met Mariana and I understood how what she had developed could really change the life and the prognosis of thousands of patients, I was really in this kind of commitment that we should make it happen as soon as possible to really bring a better world for our children tomorrow. If I if I may be very sincere and somehow naive here.
That's great. Marina, tell us about your career journey and what happened when you met Karine.
Oh, it was a fantastic meeting, indeed. I was, in the past, I was very reluctant to launch myself into a biotech foundation adventure. But Karina is a so bright person, plenty of energy, and she succeeded to convince me to initiate a new adventure where nobody else before convinced me to co-found a society. So when they proposed me this adventure with Isabel, I told her, okay, I am ready to go, but only in the case you are my CEO, because I am completely confident, even much more than confident, in her qualities, energy, capacity to moving the mountains around. So I accepted to be a strategical person in this new company.
I explained in your introduction that you have led multiple clinical trials, and I hope we can touch base on that. But had you any business experience or inclination or interest before you met Karine?
No, my only interest before to meet Karine has been patient their treatment.
Yeah.
The only thing that gives me energy is the capacity that innovative therapy have to bring to the bedside a new therapy. And I never thought about business or any other stuff in this field. And I discovered the business biotech acceleration pathway just with Karine that learned me everything I know now about the business.
She's a one-woman business acceleration pathway. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, she is.
Maybe a pathologic enthusiasm.
Yes.
Let's put that this way. But again, what is really the basis, if we may share maybe some experience here and maybe invite the young talent who could listen to this, conversation to really take a plunge, is really, if you have a great science and if you are lucky enough to meet the right people, meaning people you can trust, you need to share values and vision. It's very important because entrepreneurship, it can be pretty tough. It's very exciting, but it's also challenging. So I can testify it now, really. If I had not had this deep friendship with Marina, I couldn't have made it possible. It was very important. But it's true. And that's the reason why it's all about people and science. What Marina and Isabel have invented is amazing. It's really a breakthrough. It's opening a new kind of T-cell generation product. And it could be really a game changer to produce cheaper advanced medical therapy for a larger number of people. And that's very meaningful to me. And again, if this science had not been so solid somehow, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have been able to raise 23 million to date. We wouldn't have been able to recruit and organize and structure around Marina and Isabel a team of 30 people. I think that the people who are here because they were attracted by the quality of the science and the reputation of Marina and Isabel. And maybe as I'm concerned, I'm more like the cement, the glue in between all the people to make things really happening and organize and finance.
Yes.
But it's really I think the science, the vision, and the people, really. So it may sound naive here, but I can testify that after 6 years of hard work, it makes a huge difference.
Yes. Karine, I mentioned that you had gone back to school to get your master's in genetics. Was that prompted by the health scares that you had endured in your own life?
Not really, because I have been a pharmacy student. I've got a PhD.
Yeah.
And I was, graduate at the, previous century, I'm afraid. And then I went to business school, and then I initiated my career at Guerlain, which is a French fragrance and cosmetic company. And then I went to Chanel, L'Oréal in France, in the US, in the UK. And somehow I was bored. I think at 36, I had my little life crisis a little bit early,
Yes.
I must say. And I was looking for some sense. And I do remember I was at Chanel and we were working, on new packaging. And as you know, all folding box of fragrance for Chanel are white and black since ever. So we were trying on skincare to put a little bit of color there. And we have worked maybe during 6 months on a new way to try to structure the offer. And after 6 months, finally, everybody decided to stay in black and white. And I was thinking, okay, my God, if I had spent all this energy, really, to develop new treatment for patients, it would be much more meaningful.
Yes.
So because I had been, I had autoimmune diseases when I was a child at Necker Hospital, I called back my previous physician. I had somehow stayed very close from him since ever because it was, was autoimmune diseases. You see your physician every 6 months during all your, nearly all your life. So it's a very specific relation, I have to say. And I asked him, and he's a great, actually, and known pediatrician, Claude Grisselli. I asked him, okay, Claude, I've got a solid now experience in the private industry. Do you think that I could somehow bring something to public health and do something useful? And he told me, okay, let's try. And it was just the beginning of this Imagine Institute story. So we began with 800 euro on a bank account on a non-profit association. And in 10 years, with scientists like Mariana, we raised 183 million, built a 20 square meter institute really on the Necker Campus Hospital. And it was an amazing journey. I was learning something every day. And that's how I met Mariana and how we decided to bring this company all together. If I had been told so, I would have never believed it.
Yes. Marina, before we talk about your company and what its goals are and what its successes have been, perhaps we can start with a slightly broader discussion about your work in the cell and gene therapy space over the last 10, 15, 20 years. What have been some of the clinical successes and challenges that you have encountered over that time?
So, gene therapy has been my first adventure, initiated in the last 19th. I started from a very naive idea because at this time being, we were treating a patient without any compatible donor, with the family members partially incompatible with Professor Alain Fischer. And all the day we faced so huge and severe immunological complication due to this incompatibility between donor and the recipient. And at the same time, some new publication came out, explain that we could use the virus that have been just sequenced to as a vehicle to import into the cells a new genetic information. So in a very naive way, I think, but this is the good idea. I can take the patient own cells, gene modify them, and transplant it again into the children affected by genetic disease and cure them without any complication. Unluckily, the story has been much more complicated than this because our first clinical trial, especially the clinical trial that we did in collaboration with Selimas Mbey and Alain Fischer, gave rise a lot of severe adverse events, such as acute leukemic process. So the naive idea become really complex issues, but on behalf of all these first patients, I thought I was in duty to continue the research and improve the technology. So we came back to the bench side, and with the help of a very important network of international, very famous virologists, we could modify the vector used in the first clinical trials, and I could go further with a new vector, so-called third generation self-inactivated antivirus vector. And we become again to work with many other diseases. I think the more important breakthrough I have had with this virus is the first child cured by gene therapy, and he was affected of a severe form of sickle cell disease, a worldwide health burden that is so important to tackle, to solve for all these patients. And this 15 years old boy became completely transfusion independent and free of any symptom of sickle cell disease. But in reality, in the back of this thinking, I was also struggling with the difficulties to set up a gene therapy for each type of diseases. And I thought that it was necessary to improve the result of partially incompatible bone marrow transplantation, a more diffused therapeutic approach for this patient. And we thought with Isabelle André that if we could solve the problem of immunological reconstitution in this setting, we could really allow a great solution for so many patients at once. And in this setting, I initiated the Smart Immune adventure.
Thank you. So help us understand, what is Smart Immune's, what is its chief goal? What is it? Does it bring a technology, a strategy that is unique, or are you going after diseases that have proven difficult or impossible to treat? What is the special source of Smart Immune?
So the goal of Smart Immune is to rebuild a full immunological T-cell driven compartment, polyclonal AI functional, in all the patients with immunodeficiency that are not only genetic immunodeficiency, but also acquired immunodeficiency, as in the case of a bone marrow transplantation, but also post-chemotherapy for leukemia and multiple myeloma, for HIV patient become resistant to antiretrovirus therapy. And in the long range, we can also think about as we can rejuvenate immunological compartment in aged person, because we know very well the influence of the immunological compartment on aging of the other tissues.
Wow.
So this is our global goal. How we can reach this goal?
Marina, if you allow me, and that's we work together since 15 years. So if I may maybe put that in more simple words for maybe non-scientists, if there is some around.
Sure. Please go ahead.
We just rearm the immune system against cancers and infections, more globally. If I may be very, to just summarize what we do. And what Marina and Isabel have invented is a new T-cell subtype. So it's really the very first time that we are able to use T-cell progenitors in clinic. And I'm more than happy to let Marina to describe you her invention.
Go ahead. You are much more keen than me to make this complicated stuff simple. Go ahead, Karine, please.
What is amazing to me on what Isabel and Marina have invented is because they understand so well how T-cell differentiated that they find a way to biomimic what is happening in the first step of T-cell differentiation between blood stem cell, and this very specific stage where they are ready to go into the thymus to be educated, to fight against what needs to be eliminated because it's malignancies or affected by a pathogen, and not touch what is healthy. We call it self and non-self. So this stage is roughly 15 months in the bone marrow. And Marina and Isabel have managed to biomimic that in a GMP grade in only 7 days. So just imagine what it can bring to patients.
Wow. Have you launched any clinical trials yet, or is that in process?
No. We have launched 3 different clinical trials. One for SCID patient in Europe, one for T-depleted allogenic bone marrow transplantation in New York, and the third one in the case of haploidentical bone marrow transplantation, transplanted patient receiving cyclophosphamide at day 3 and 4. These are all phase 1-2 clinical study, searching for the highest efficient doses with the less toxicity as possible.
And what are, if these go well, what other indications do you hope to expand into in the next few years?
So we are 2 major indications. One is primary immunodeficiency, because there is more than 700 different immunodeficiency with thousands of people affected around the world. And the second one is tumor, individuals with tumors that need to a new T-cell compartment.
Are you doing these trials, are you funding them purely by yourselves, or are you working with other big pharma partners?
So at the moment, we have been very lucky actually at Smart Immune, because we have been able to capitalize on the amazing work of Marina and Isabel and begin with the Great Hospital of Paris, which is a public institution, to do a investigator trial. And that was on the bubble babies. And it's a great proof of concept, because those babies don't have any T-cell before, 12 months or 18 months post-transplant. So if you see some T-cells at 3 months, it's necessarily the one coming from your pro-T-cell educated by the thymus of those babies, which is great. So that's like a whiteboard, the ideal pathology to validate somehow the platform. And that's what Marina said very long time ago already. So we have decided at Smart Immune to sponsor the trial, allowing to validate what those pro-T-cell could bring to adult leukemic patients. Because we know that those cells coming from healthy donor, but educated by the own thymus of the patient, could be a game changer to give them back the right weapon against infections and malignancies. So we sponsored 2 trials, one in the US, as Mariana has indicated, at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. And the second one is led in Europe, in France and Italy. And this is a trial was received a great interest of the strategic investment fund of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And interestingly, they were not interested in oncology, as you know. They were really intrigued on whether our T-cell progenitor, we call them pro-T-cell, could wake up the thymus in adults and really mature patients affected by leukemia. And this is very encouraging and exciting time now, because we are including the first patient. And all the clinical first data are pointing in the same direction. What we have seen in mouse, what we have seen in SCID patients, bubble babies, is also seems to happen also in those leukemic adult patients. It seems like those T-cell progenitors can somehow wake up the thymus and being educated to provide a fully new, fit, numerous T-cell compartment.
Well, it seems like you are well on your way. The company is now in its 7th year, I believe, but it has not escaped my attention that the 3 co-founders of the company are women, which is unusual in the biotech space. I'm curious if you can go back. Did that fact, did it make it difficult? Did you have any problems or challenges getting Smart Immune off the ground that perhaps if there'd been some old male Nobel laureates hanging around might have made it easier? I don't know. Tell me about those early, the planning and the inception of the company, and any challenges that you may have had to face.
So, Kevin, what kind of answer do you expect us? So, if we want to make it useful for the audience, it has not been easy.
Yeah.
As you can guess, we have the lot of advice, like, you know what, ladies, just get the data out of the bench and out of the clinical trial, and we take care of the money and we take care of the equity. And this is just not fair, and this is not just acceptable.
Yeah.
Mariana's worked all her life, really, very hard to bring innovation to patients. And I've seen her discussing with big pharmaceutical companies, and really she was the inventor, and she has such great know-how that we were thinking that the only way to somehow encapsulate this know-how was to create the company. So there was no way, some old white Caucasian male, if I may be very blank here, could somehow stall her work and make it happen at her place and at Isabel's place. And I was very engaged and committed to demonstrate that a woman can definitely, as men, be as talented to raise money, structure company, bring innovation to patients. Mariana, do you want to give maybe another side of the story?
No, this is true. Sometimes at the very beginning, when we initiated to meet some venture capitals, always men, there is somebody that asked us if there were men in our company. So, and sometimes we find it necessary to find out 1 or 2 men to show them in order to make the business field quiet around us.
There's a lovely photo of your company on the website, and I did spot a few Y chromosomes. So you've made a few token hires there.
No, we have some.
And we do believe in diversity.
Yes.
And also multicultural, team. We are very proud to have, I think, more than 12 different nationalities in our small startup. But I think it's very important to mix people and take people who are really different than yourself.
Yes.
When you put together a company.
Mm.
And it's important to not only work with the people you know the best. It's confrontation of different opinion, challenging the roadmap, and really diversity is the key. So we are not. I'm a feminist, definitely convinced that we need men to change the world.
Yes.
Men and women, not only women, but men and women.
Yes, indeed. Was your Karine, your business experience at a cosmetics, many of the big international cosmetics firms, to what degree was that helpful and translatable in helping you launch Smart Immune? You have that's a rare experience that most biotech executives obviously don't have.
I guess I've got, again, it's all about diversity. So I guess that coming from blue chip companies, I've got maybe some different view and understanding. And maybe sometimes I make some, because I'm not a real scientist, I make some shortcuts and can maybe explain less in detail the real science. So I think that, again, it's all about complementary expertise. And I guess that it does help you to get, methodology. L'Oréal has been a great school. And what I learned over there is definitely very applicable here. It's to respect deadline, to be able to provide what is expected, in the quality expected, in the timeline expected, in the budget respected. I mean, it's not, of course, it's much more difficult because it's science. Of course, it's much more difficult because it's alive cells. It's even more difficult because we need the timeliness of the patient to do the job. So it's really groundbreaking science, but at the end of the day, it's project management. And somehow you need talent, you need to respect deadline, you need to respect budget, and you need to have also different character working together, because at the end of the day, if they don't manage to work together, they don't go anywhere.
Yes. Were there any additional challenges, perhaps being based in Europe, in France versus, it seems in America these days, every smart PhD is, before they publish their first paper, is launching a company. It seems quite relatively straightforward. I'm curious if you felt it might have been easier to take this operation and situate it in Boston or San Francisco or somewhere.
I'm pretty sure that the fundraising would be much more simpler, for sure.
Yeah.
But there are also some talent here, obviously. And I think that today the heartbeat of Smart Immune is still here. Now we need to think, you cannot develop a company like that without thinking international and US right away. And that's the reason why we did open the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center trial very quickly. So we plan to open some office in Boston, obviously, but today we're still based in Europe, and we can still operate from Europe at this stage.
Very good. Two more questions before we.
I would like to share, maybe if Marina allows me, an anecdote, because Marina has spent some moment in her career here in Boston, and I think it was a great trigger maybe to think differently. Marina, if you can share.
No, it's okay.
When you came here and you work on gene therapy, I think it did help you also to somehow accelerate your vision and maybe enlarge the way you were thinking about the hurdle you had to tackle.
I think she agrees. Marina, I want to ask you, we last month in December 2023, of course, we heard the exciting news, groundbreaking news about the approval of Casgevy, the CRISPR-based cell therapy for sickle cell disease. I'm curious, as an expert in that space, what is your reaction not only to the scientific milestone, but also it brings up, of course, the question of pricing and access to patients. And we know over the last few years that it has proven very difficult in Europe, especially for payers to justify the very high costs of some of these groundbreaking gene and cell therapies. So what's your reaction to the Casgevy approval, and how can your own efforts avoid perhaps the commercialization mistakes that others have fallen into, especially in Europe?
So very key question for innovative therapy indeed. So first of all, I would like just to spend a few words saying that all the patients treated with this new gene editing technology have been successfully cured. So I think we can't only discuss the price, we have also to underline the benefit provided to the patient.
Yes.
Nevertheless, you're right, the price requested are excessively high, and this price can't allow this treatment to the so huge amount of person that need it, especially in middle or low income country, but also in Europe. The history of Bluebird Bio is very significant because after a year of effort to which we have hugely contributed for the development, the European government declined to pay a so high price. I think we have to develop a new economical model in, for sure, partnership win-to-win between the public and industries. We have to implement the academic facility because they are owned to bring innovation from scratch to the bedside at low cost. So in between, we have to find the new models to bring innovation to the patient at a cost sustainable for the healthy system. We have in France some track that we are exploring to make this successful, and I hope that France can be an example for other countries.
Very good, thank you. So in closing, I'll ask you both it's a predictable closing question, but given the success and the experience that you have amassed in the last 6, 7, 8 years getting Smart Immune off the ground and on its way, what advice do you have for people watching, particularly as aspiring female industry entrepreneurs? Karine.
There is a phrase from a French writer, René Char, that I do love, which is, impose your chance, hold up to your happiness, and keep your way. Looking at you, they're going to get used to it. So what it does mean is that you need to believe in yourself, you need to believe in what you want, and you need to make it, and you can make it happen. You need to be lucky enough to meet the right people to make things real, and I've been lucky to meet Mariana, and I would like to invite all the young ladies or young scientists who are hesitating to take a plunge to just try. You can make it happen.
Yes. Very good. Mariana, what advice do you have?
So I think, yes, I completely agree with the sentences expressed by Karine just now. Women have to trust their own capacity, and also they have to be freedom and open mind, not to be subjected to influences from the hierarchy, especially if the hierarchy want to dominate them. So be freedom, open mind, and trust your capacities.
Yes. Maybe the last piece of advice is consider hiring Karine and Mariana for your scientific advisory boards. Their experience and their talent would help your startup no end. It's been a lovely conversation. I've been very excited to speak with you both. So on behalf of the Rosalind Franklin Society, Karine and Mariana, thank you so much for joining us, and bon chance for Smart Immune. All the best.
Thank you very much. We also need it.
Okay. Goodbye for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Bye-bye.
So for the second half of this session, Unique Opportunities in Biotech, we're delighted to welcome Squire Servance, the founder and managing partner of Syridex Bio. Squire is the founder and managing partner of Syridex Bio, which is a life sciences focused investment firm funding and developing therapies that accelerate global health equity. He oversees the firm's operations, growth strategy, investment decisions, and fundraising execution. He's had a fantastic career, previously serving as the General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer for Repligen Corporation, where he was the Chief Legal Advisor to the President and CEO and the Board of Directors. And before that, he was the Associate General Counsel at Baxter International, where he was also Chief Legal Advisor. Squire's education in cell biology and biomedical engineering, his legal expertise and biotech experience grant him the acumen and insights into what is needed to take a medicine or medical device from R&D and clinical trials to FDA approval and into the market. So without further ado, here's Squire.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to really share my experiences today and my path in my career, and hopefully you'll find some things that are somewhat valuable that you can glean from my experiences and background. And so I was born and raised in New Jersey, and growing up, success from my family usually ultimately looked like if you were lawyer or doctor, right? And I give this context because as you hear more about my story, I ended up somewhat going in a little bit of both paths. But in sixth grade, I ultimately started doing a presentation on orthopedic surgeons. It was really tied to, wow, how much they made and how they got the chance to interact with athletes. And really in sixth grade, that assignment is what really piqued my interest in the life sciences. And so if you ultimately look at my career from that point on, it's really been in the life sciences space. And so to me, that's really one, to show the power of good teachers and interesting projects, because that's really what piqued my interest. And when I started in sixth grade and then kind of going forward, I did heavily sciences in high school, and I ultimately went to Rutgers University. And, I started Rutgers University, and my focus initially was biology. And one of the things I kind of knew that I was like, well, look, what if I don't want to go to med school? What if I don't want to teach? I really wanted to expand my horizons and some of the options that I had. So I ultimately ended up going into biomedical engineering. And it was a great space because it coupled really real life experiences and real world skill sets that if I ended up not going to med school, getting my PhD, I can go work and practice in the industry. And so it was a great intersection of kind of engineering, biology, and then I was taking some courses in this space. And ultimately, I got excited and really interested in really the neurology side of things. And so I ended up adding a second major, cell biology and neuroscience. Did some amazing work with some amazing professors when I was an undergraduate, and did some really strong work in around Parkinson's patients, and wrote some code to measure different microelectrode recordings in different wavelengths and trying to understand where we can lesion parts of specific brains to stop tremors. And that work was really, really exciting to me. And I was going through this process and taking these courses, and the goal was to go to medical school and become an orthopedic surgeon still. But I ultimately, probably around my junior year, decided that I would say that path wasn't right for me. I spoke with a number of doctors. I was studying for the MCAT at the time. And ultimately, I decided to kind of not go to med school, but then I really didn't know what to do. And going back to my point earlier around where my kind of growing up, what I knew to be success from my family was around law or medicine. I switched from med school and I ended up applying to law school. And I applied to law school at the very last possible date you could actually take it. You could do it. So I took the exam the end of December in my senior year. And I felt like that was a good fit. Now, I'll pause there for a second to share, law wasn't it wasn't out of the scope. I knew it growing up. My mother was a judge. My father had his law degree. I have a number of family members in law enforcement. And so I knew the law relatively well. And so I thought it was a good move for me. And I knew that I could still use my science background to at least do patent law really well, write patents, protect innovations, and work with companies at the forefront of new technologies and new science. And I knew it was a great way to marry my love for the science still, but take it into this new career path. And so I ended up applying to law school and getting in at, I ended up going to Duke University Law School. And it was a great, great experience. And what I found there was that science and the engineering way of thinking that I learned as an undergraduate translated really well to the study and the practice of law. It's really about identifying problems, breaking them into its different components, digging down at each one of those pieces, understanding what the true issue is, fix it, and then building back up into a synthesized analysis and conclusion that kind of connected the dots. And while we did that in science and engineering, it translated well. We're just using text and case law now as a lawyer to do those types of things. And so I felt like that my background really helped me. And I didn't know this, truthfully, I didn't know that would be the case going in. I just wanted to go out and combine what I was doing from the science side into the practice of law, but it ultimately worked out really well. And while I was there, I ultimately decided to get my business degree, my MBA. It was an extra year. And, one of the things you learn in the law is that a lot of times it's a means to an end. So there's a business decision that happens, and you ultimately need to then kind of bring in the lawyers to kind of execute on the business decision. And I wanted to understand the business side of things. And so I thought that MBA would be really helpful in understanding that. And so I ended up getting that, and where I focused in corporate finance, and so really around the numbers, but I did get a certificate in health sector management. And so if you look at my career, it's at least my educational career too. So to date, it was the science, and then it was law, and then it was business. And that combination really is the grounding for my professional career to date. Because I initially graduated, and then I went to I clerked for a year in Oklahoma City in the Court of Appeals. But then my first true, I would say, private sector job was at a law firm working as a patent attorney, and it was great. It was exactly what I thought it would be. I'm writing patents, working with innovators, and it was great to to see another path where, I'm working, most of my colleagues either have a master's or PhDs in a variety of different areas, working with really, really sharp people, working at the forefront innovation and technology, and then really combining my efforts to really help companies protect these innovations and which ultimately, just at a high level, kind of helps, patent law and that realm really helps society, I think, as a whole, because it gives people an incentive to innovate. And so being a part of that system really gave me a good feeling and good comfort that what I was doing was meaningful, right? And so I ultimately did this for a number of years. And one of the things you'll find, and I give you this journey to show that you ultimately have a goal, but it can pivot, but you can still use what you learned in whether your educational career, professional career, to do something a little bit different, and those skill sets are transferable. And so I practiced at the law firm for a number of years, and I ultimately transitioned from doing more intellectual property, writing patent work, to doing deal work. And one of the things that I noticed when I was doing the transactions is that the true power of advancing innovation and technology a lot of times lay with those that were investing, that were directing the money. And so early on in my legal career, I saw this, and I wanted to get on a path to ultimately get into venture or private equity or some type of investing. And I had a mentor in this space who ran a firm, a life sciences venture firm in Philadelphia. And, the advice they gave me was, if you want to get into this space, you want to be at the forefront of investing in technologies and innovations in the life sciences space, you should go in-house and work for companies, build a track record of doing deals, and expand and continue to grow your skill sets on identifying and doing deals. And so that's what I ultimately ended up doing. I ended up working at the law firm for 6-7 years, going in-house to my first role was at Dr. Eddie's. I was on the legal side, but I was working for their business development team. And that's where I really came in, and I started being able to flex everything I've learned to date: the science, the business, the legal, the patents. All of that came to a head at that role. And I was able to kind of talk with the business and understanding and identifying assets, which ones made the most sense, figure out which ones didn't, getting into the weeds of diligencing assets and identifying where there are holes, where there are gaps, why this makes sense, why this doesn't. And I got a chance to begin to do a lot more business-minded, I would say, legal work and identifying assets and acquiring them. And so if you look at my career from my tail end of my law firm going in-house, I ended up going to ultimately 3 different spots in-house. And so I spent some time at Baxter. I was head of legal for essentially head of legal for their $2 billion pharmaceutical business. And in that role, I was, obviously charged with managing the team and the legal team on that side, but also helping to grow the business inorganically through acquisitions. And so we did a lot of work there through acquisitions. And in that between, I don't know, 10, 12 years into my career at this point. And by ultimately left Baxter to become general counsel and corporate secretary of a public life sciences company called Repligen out in the Boston area. And again, similarly, this is a company that's highly acquisitive, and I had experience doing deals, and I ended up doing work in there for a little bit. And then kind of really COVID hit. Now I'm in the middle of COVID now. And this is like to me, is a pivotal time for me, right? We get to a point and just in life and society where, growing up growing up Black and having the conversations in my family, we always knew that inequities existed, right? Particularly health inequities. COVID, I think, really kind of ripped the veil back to me for society, where it was talked about more so on TV and the news for a good period of time, where it was really hard to hide it, right? So you had to have that discussion about why certain groups are more likely to get hospitalized, more likely to die, more likely to catch particular COVID. And so my idea of ultimately wanting to run a venture fund started to kind of coalesce around, can I come up with a business model that makes sense, that can address health inequities? And that really spun into what I'm doing today. Syridex is it's an investment firm, a biopharma investment firm, where we are focused on making early stage venture creation type investments in innovative therapies, specifically therapies that treat diseases that disproportionately impact underserved communities, right? So we're like a traditional firm in a sense where we make investments in a variety of different areas, but the way we target investments is we start with where's there a health disparity. And we have a number of criteria that we kind of look through to do that. And then we figure out what diseases they are, and if there's any innovative technologies that we can either repurpose, continue to develop, accelerate, that can be useful for that specific disease. And our hope is that to get new therapies for this particular group of diseases. And we think, look, if we execute on our thesis correctly, I will think you'll make obviously strong returns for investors, but also we'll be able to accelerate health equity, which to me is trying to close health disparity gaps, the ability for everyone to have a fair and just opportunity to attain a healthy level of living, right? That's at the end of the day. I think ultimately, if anyone's listening to this, that's in the sciences, hard PhD, MD, that wants to think outside the box and go into different areas, legal, corporate, investment, financial, you can do that with your background. Because a lot of times, at least from my perspective, the true value of these advanced degrees or the science degrees, while it is some of the hard science that you're studying, it's really about how you think about things. And that's the skill set that's transferable in a variety of different professions. So I encourage each of you to really, if you're thinking about doing other things, chart your own course. This is your life. And make calculated decisions and get the best advice from folks. But I think you can do it. And, it takes again, it's somewhat of risk at times, but reality is no risk, no reward. So I encourage each of you that are thinking about transitioning or doing something different, you can do it. And to go out and be the change and be the change you want to see in society and have the impact that you want to have. And leverage your background the way you can do it and the way society will let you.
Thank you so much, Squire Servance from Syridex Bio. That was a fascinating presentation. And our thanks, of course, also to Karine and Mariana, our guests in the first half of this session, Unique Opportunities in Biotech. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Kevin Davis. Stay tuned now as the Rosalind Franklin Society annual meeting continues.